Good evening, folks, and welcome to the Horror Corner. I'm your host, Sean Patrick Erschen, and this week we're going to pay tribute to the legend, the master of horror, and that is the legendary director George A. Romero, who sadly passed away a couple days ago. And I just have to tell you this weird little tidbit that on that day I had no clue that he had passed away, and I had watched both Dawn of the Dead and Day of the Dead that day. It's like, and then I heard the news on like Facebook, and I was like, oh my god, no way, this is insane. But I felt I had to put out a video to pay tribute to a legend, a man that just completely influenced me, and who just captivated me through so many of his films, and who I admire so much. And these three films I want to talk about are the three of the greatest zombie films ever made. There's no question about that. If you have a top 10 zombie movie list and you don't have all three of these movies on that list, there's something wrong with you. I would question your judgment. And it's all started with the great Night of the Living Dead. The original masterpiece. The one that started it all. The one that changed the game. Changed the face of horror as we know it. Now, zombies had existed in film prior to that, but they were relegated to basically just henchmen for the bad guy. They were just hulking monsters with no substance or depth behind them. So George Romero added the deadly twist that zombies are actually flesh eaters. They crave the flesh of their victims. They devour their victims, if you will. And that's such a scary thought. Like, oh my God, they are a real threat. Not only will they kill you, they will rip your flesh apart and eat you. That's terrifying. And so he added that brutality to the whole new level of brutality to the zombie film. And that has just sent ripples across the whole film community, because to this day that is still used in so many films, so many horror films, so many zombie films, and TV shows like The Walking Dead, films like World War Z, Shaun of the Dead, Resident Evil, 28 Days Later even. So many films have adapted that to their films, and so many filmmakers owe their careers to George Romero. The influence he's had on the horror genre, on the film genre in general, is just absolutely amazing. Look at all the comments from all the people, you know, after he passed, all those brilliant film directors that have stated how much of an impact he had on Hollywood and film in general. It's just amazing. Yeah, even if you look at the visual style and that visual storytelling that he uses in the original Night of the Living Dead, it's such great camera work. It's so effective, that really powerful soundtrack that's like overpowering. On that dun, 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 and the fact that he chose to shoot it in black and white is really makes Night of the Living Dead really stand out. And it's just terrifying, you know. It's so weird how you see a lot of the blood and the gore, and there's like black blood. It's like weird. I love that. And excellent performances by virtually unknown actors like Dwayne Jones there, who played the lead. And the decision at that time in the 60s to have a black man as the lead was also a very powerful thing. And so he helped break down the barriers in that sense, and it's never mentioned in the film, oh, he's a black guy, you know. He's just this good guy. He's trying to help this young woman, and they're trying to survive in this nightmarish apocalypse. And it's just amazing, and it's so scary too. I think Night of the Living Dead is absolutely the scariest zombie film ever made to this day. It still scares the hell out of me. On just the fact that these few people are barricaded themselves in this house, and the hordes of zombies are just surrounding, trying to pound their way in, and it's so scary, and they're trying to survive. I love it. And there's also a lot of social commentary and political commentary on the government, like they're almost like they're trying to wipe it out, like they're just trying to wipe everything out. The first time you see these zombies, you kill them. We don't want to try and study them or anything. We don't want to try and determine what's going on, why this is happening. They just want to wipe them out of existence and wash their hands of it. And so they gather up the army and the National Guard and random rednecks in the streets, to take out each zombie one by one. But it doesn't matter how many times, how many zombies they'll kill, there's always more. It's never going to stop. And that's the powerful message that he sends in a lot of his films, And that outlook on life, that grim outlook on life that comes through. And it's a lot of it's very true, and it's sad to see that society has come to that, and that the government has come to that. But he makes some great, powerful messages in his movies. And of course, the great Dawn of the Dead, the amazing sequel. Who would have thought that any sequel could be as good as the original? Never mind, in my opinion, even better. It one-ups the original in pretty much every way. It's terrifying. This one actually injects some humor, which the Night of the Living Dead didn't have much of. It was very serious, very horrific, but there is a lot of humor in Dawn of the Dead. And some absolutely vicious gore and awesome makeup and special effects job by the great Tom Savini as well. He had to fall back on. Amazing gore effects, and again you get another great cast of unknown actors that really shine. It's just a powerful, powerful film. And once again, you see more social commentary. You see the thought that, wow, a woman could be pregnant during the zombie apocalypse. Whoa, that's a terrifying thought, And the decisions to, are we going to raise this child in this horrific nightmare that we're living in? Or are we going to have it aborted? And that raises another issue of abortion. So it brings up all kinds of issues like that. It's a very powerful film in more ways than one. There's a lot of great humor. There's awesome gore effects, and they really amped up the violence in this film. And just another great cast of great young up-and-coming actors giving great performances. And he rounded it off with the often overlooked but equally excellent Day of the Dead. And I think a lot of people are starting to realize how great this film is. It stands right along with the original too, as far as I'm concerned. I love watching it, and I love watching all three of them. 1, 2, 3, bam. Even though technically as sequels they really don't have anything to do with each other, except the fact that the zombie apocalypse is out there and we have to deal with it. That's pretty much the only thing that it has in common with the previous films. And I know that George Romero even said originally that Day of the Dead was supposed to be a huge spectacle. It was supposed to be on a much grander scale by what the original screenplay was supposed to be. But I think it makes it even better, to be honest, the fact that it's just kind of relegated to that underground bunkers, the army barracks. And I think that makes it even scarier, more claustrophobic, oh my god, if the zombies get down there, we're really screwed, you know. And that's the terror that instills. And I love the issues that it looks at in terms of the character of Dr. Frankenstein, played by Richard Liberty. I like the fact that he tries to find out what makes the zombies tick. Why are they doing this? Why do they want to kill us? Can we change that? Can we make them behave? Can we make them act like normal human beings? Can we make them remember who they were before this happened? And so he does all kinds of experiments. A lot of them, you know, he ends up killing them and hacking them up just for, you know, experimentation purposes. You end up with piles of carcasses and bloody. But there is one guy that he makes a lot of progress with, and that's Bub, he calls him. And you can see, wow, this guy does kind of remember some of his past and who he was, you know. And he makes some great progress, and it's really interesting. And what an awesome performance by the actor Howard Sherman as Bub. A brilliant portrayal, and he's got to be the most interesting, charismatic zombie ever portrayed in film. No question. And I just love that scene, like at the end, with because he meets the guy who's the captain of the army team, who is actually in charge of overseeing the experiments and the whole operation that they're running, you know, trying to figure out what's going on and figuring out a way to defeat this zombie apocalypse and to put a stop to it. So you got the army on one side and you got the scientists on the other side. And the leader of the army is this guy who's absolutely psychotic, played by Joe Pilato. He's just out of his mind. He's a complete asshole, you know. Like, you will hate this guy if you watch this film. If you haven't seen it already, he's got to be the biggest asshole in the history of film. And when he finally gets what's coming to him, it's like the most satisfying death in the history of movies. And we see how Howard Sherman as Bub give that salute after he kills him. It's like so hilarious. And it's just awesome. Awesome. Love it. And there you have it, 3 amazing zombie classics. And of course I gotta mention some of the other great films that George Romero has directed, like Creepshow and the very highly underrated Creepshow 2. Those anthologies with the great, you know, several different horror stories in one. The original film even had Stephen King acting in it as well. And he also wrote some of the stories. So what a great collaboration between 2 horror geniuses, 2 horror icons, and they made an incredible film with an amazing cast. You had Adrienne Barbeau, you had Leslie Nielsen, you had Ted Danson, unbelievable cast, and it's amazing stories in that film, as well as Creepshow 2 with George Kennedy, the old chief Woodenhead. I love that story. And the story with the big swamp monster in the river. I love that one. Creepshow 2, if you guys haven't seen it, check it out. It's so underrated. An excellent film. You gotta love that hitchhiker. You know, thanks for the ride, lady. That's classic. Of course, you gotta talk about Martin, the vampire film, or is it a vampire film? Of course, you had The Crazies, which was recently remade in like 2010, I believe. It was really good too. That's a classic as well. So check out George Romero's great history of filmmaking and respect one of the idols, one of the icons of the horror genre, and the man who single-handedly created the modern zombie film and the modern zombie itself. So you gotta pay homage to the great George A. Romero. And George Romero, rest in peace. We love you. And thank you so much for joining me in the Horror Corner. Tune in and stay scared.